This podcast is part of the Zero to Hero Podcast Network.
This is Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. And I want to encourage all of you out there to listen to Give the Dad a Podcast. And remember, everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
Hello, all my beautiful people. It's time for another fun episode of If You Give a Dad a Podcast. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who is tuning in right now. Whether this is the first time that you've tuned into the show, or if you've been listening for a long time, I really appreciate each and every one of you being here today to listen to this show. So today's guest that I have with me is actually a lot of fun. It's somebody that I have known for a little while now. I actually worked with them in Diamond State Wrestling, and so we had a really cool conversation talking about how she started in the business and, all those things, the cool things that she's been doing. She actually did she hosted a night with the Hardy Boyz from wrestling. So she's done some really cool stuff, and I thought it'd be a cool time to bring her onto the show to kind of just talk about everything that she's done so far and maybe some of the things that she has coming up. And the person I'm talking about is Anna Ray. Like I said, this is a great conversation. We had a great time, and I know that you guys are really going to enjoy listening to this episode. And for those of you who are here just to listen to the Anna Ray episode, welcome. I hope you enjoy what you hear, and I hope that you stick around and listen to some of my other episodes as well. So, if you guys are as excited as I am, then let's get this show on the road.
If You Give a Dad a Podcast.
You're bloody welcome!
Hey, Dad.
If I get my hand stuck in a pickle jar, I'm straight up bull in a china shop, just swinging around.
Started writing songs when I was about 12 or so.
Seriously?
They're retrofitting me now, and
I'm like, yes, finally.
I've also had the opportunity to go train with Hoist Gracie and Dan Severin.
Wow.
I like that. That's different. Stands out.
That day I took my very first bump, and it was fun.
There's only one section to go to first.
Yeah.
Toys.
Bro.
I was like, no, man, surely this guy's not booked out that long.
I haven't laughed that hard since I was a little girl.
What?
Man, this guy won't shut up.
And just a reminder before we get started here, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to IYGADAP wherever it is you're listening. Hit that notification bell so you are notified when a new episode drops. Also, make sure that you go out there and rate and review this episode. Tell me what you think of it. And the more people that do that, the more likely I am to be recommended to somebody else. Now, on to the show. All right, folks. So this one is going to be a ton of fun. I have somebody on here, as I told you last week, that is somebody that I feel kind of lightens the room whenever she walks in. She's a great person that I met at Diamond State Wrestling. She's a ring announcer. She's a manager. She was the host of The Evening with the Hardys in Little Rock. She's a pro wrestling trainee and just an all-around awesome person. And I am talking about Anna Ray. How are you doing tonight?
Jared, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. I am well. I'm just gearing up. Mutiny Wrestling Federation has a show this Saturday, so I'm getting some notes ready and just getting really excited for that show. But overall, yeah, man, I'm doing good. How are you? How's the podcast doing?
Podcast is doing well. I've kind of got to go all over the place with it. I just went to my last live event for the year. I went to a convention in McAlester, Oklahoma. It's going great. I'm still enjoying it.
Very good. Glad to hear it. I love hearing about your work, and I'm really happy you've done really good for yourself too. So if nobody's patting you on the back, Jared, allow me to reciprocate that energy to you. Like, you're doing great, buddy.
I appreciate that. I really do. And you've been doing some really cool stuff, because when I first met you, you were doing ring announcing and you were training. And then the next thing I know, you're popping up doing some managerial stuff with Angel Camacho. And you're doing all these other places now, too. And it seems like your journey is starting to really take off.
It appears so, Jared. I'm still ring announcing, I'm still managing, I'm still training, and I'll be debuting sooner than you think. So I'm really trying to hit all of my bases on just being a well-rounded overall performer.
Right.
That's what I love first and foremost about this business, is that if I can just have an audience for an hour and a half, 2 hours, forget about their life at home, their work day, their schedule, whatever. And if I can make them absolutely hate me or absolutely love me,
Yeah.
then I know I am at least giving them a chance to transfer that energy into something away from the problems that are real in life. So these are the things I look forward to the most. So whether that's the face of a company, like doing the announcing, or, you know, really getting little kids to despise me, working with Angel Camacho, or, you know, just doing the training and building up the character of Anna Ray. Like, these are the things that I love. And I love wrestling as a whole. So, yeah.
So we're going to kind of just jump into this. And where did you get started with this? Like, was this something that you've always wanted to do, or is this something that you found later? Were you a wrestling fan as a kid?
Oh boy, howdy was I. I feel like I have to explain all of my lore, and that's
Okay.
going to be tough. But basically, one of my first memories of ever just being alive, being a functioning human being, was watching Monday Night Raw. I saw this bald guy in these like denim shorts and like a black vest, like running down to the wrestling ring, and he gives this old guy in a suit what's called like a stone cold stunner, right?
Yeah.
And then like he gets up on these ropes and he starts flipping everybody off, and people start throwing him beers, and he's clashing these beers over this old guy in the suit. And I look at my dad and I'm like, Dad, I want to do that when I grow up. And I was 4 years old.
Oh,
and
wow.
so I knew instantaneously, like, I want to do whatever that guy, Stone Cold Steve Austin, is doing. And so I absolutely grew up a wrestling fan. Stone Cold is obviously one of my favorites. He obviously formed my brain as I grew up.
Right.
You know, the Hardy Boys, obviously, I'm sure we'll touch on that in a little bit.
Yeah.
And then Lita, Edge, Randy Orton, Trish Stratus, Victoria, all these people really like compounded the structure of my government identity and my wrestling identity. And so, yes, that's essentially like what planted the seed for wrestling for me. But watering that seed was meeting Trish and Lita at the Little Rock Comic Con in a couple of years ago, 2022. So I was first in line to meet Lita. And at this point, like, I had just gotten back into wrestling. Like, you know, I mean, I took a brief pause. I say brief, about 9 years away.
Yeah.
And so I took a minute, met Lita, and it was catharsis. It was like, they say not to meet your heroes. You can absolutely meet Lita. You can absolutely meet Trish. Like, they were just lovely. And just getting to talk with them about wrestling and then just life and everything like that in general. I decided, I was like, you know what, this is a whole convention. I'm going to go back for day 2. And so I went back for day 2, and they were hosting a Q&A panel. And I was first in line to just be like, okay. So at this point in the industry, if you think like this was, like September 2022, a lot of the Vince McMahon stuff was coming out. And so I asked my question, like, do you think this industry is safe for women to work in now, seeing the changes that are happening in upper management within WWE? Would you want somebody to pursue this dream? Like, would you encourage it? Because, you know, the times were different from whenever they were wrestling versus what women are wrestling with now, you know?
Right.
And so I asked them that, and then Lita grabs the mic from Trish, and she's like, well, Anna, do you want to be a wrestler? And I'm like, girl, I don't know, maybe like a little. And, and, you know, they basically just told me, they're like, look, in everybody's life, you should always aim to have a WrestleMania moment. And that doesn't have to be wrestling related. That could be getting promoted at work, getting married, having a kid.
Yeah.
But she's like, if you have a dream, you've got to follow it. You got to see it through, because 10, 20, 30 years from now, you'll look back and you'll have regret if you don't give it a shot.
Right.
So that was my childhood heroes. These 2 very, very strong women who I needed growing up, telling me to just, yeah, girl, go do it. You've got the permission. And I'm like, okay. About a week later, I sign up with Diamond State Wrestling, and I start training under Alexander Gold. And it really kind of started from there. And I did a lot of training with him, and I'm currently training with Mutiny Wrestling Federation under Eric Bronson and Eli Perez.
Yeah.
So I've done some seminars, like I'm doing character work. I'm just a sponge right now. Like I'm just trying to learn as much as I can. And that's kind of, where it all started and where it has ended up currently. So I love wrestling in all spheres, and I just want to be a part of everything, honestly.
That's awesome. And the thing is there's so much in wrestling to give. There's so much rich history. So, you're talking about, learning as much as you can and doing these seminars and everything. I'm not a wrestler. The only time I've stepped foot in a ring is whenever I recorded an episode with Alexander Gold, so, but still, just from my point of view, I'm still learning stuff every day from wrestling, from hearing all of these different things, so it's something that you never quite fully learn. It's always a learning process, and you got to keep open to being able to learn new stuff.
Oh, absolutely. That's why, like, if I had to give anybody advice and just interested in learning this business, is to essentially be a sponge. Pretend you know nothing. Pretend you don't even know who, The Rock is. Pretend you don't know anything. Like, you have to genuinely be a sponge. Don't be a know-it-all, and just listen, because your trainers, they will keep learning too. They also attend seminars. They also are honing their craft, and they're just passing that knowledge on to us. And they are just hoping that we do the same. We pay the same respect. We go to seminars and we hone our craft. So I absolutely agree. Like, wrestling is a love language. It's something that you keep striving for, and you learn something new about it every day. It's like having a partner. It's like having something you're married to. You just find little quirks about it, and you just continue to fall in love with it every day. Yeah. So, but also at the same time, you want to suplex it sometimes. So there's a healthy little balance. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing I've learned from just talking to people, it gets in your blood. And it's like one of those things, I need to do this. I have to do this, And so even from any point of view, once you get in there and you've kind of tasted that side, it's something that you kind of feel like you have to do, because it's just part of you now.
Absolutely. I can't imagine me doing anything else right now with my free time, just starting this up 2 years ago. Like, I can't imagine what my hobby would be right now, or what my weekends would look like right now. Like, I can't imagine. Like, once you start wrestling, you are intertwined with it. And it's like getting a tattoo. They say, like, you can never just have one. Like, once you get one, you start planning out all your others. So it's like, once you get in the ring and you start taking bumps, you're like, okay, what are we going to learn in the next class? What are we going to, execute next? What holds are we going to do? What is my finisher going to be? And it just keeps going. And then, you fall in love with it every time, and you fight with it every time. But it's absolutely, I think Cody Rhodes once tweeted out one time that wrestling is a love story. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. It is my favorite love story.
So it's funny you said that you came into this in 2022. That is actually when I went to my very first independent wrestling show, was in 2022. And I started this podcast then. And on my first episode, I was like, it'd be kind of cool to get some of those wrestlers on my podcast, And now, I know a lot of them and everything. And I've learned so much over these last 2 years myself. So, it's kind of cool that, the parallel there of us both coming into the independent scene almost around the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that is a really cool parallel, Jared. I dig it. And I mean, I like that you've been able to kind of see the bigger picture with interviewing, these independent wrestlers, because you never know who you could be interviewing.
Right.
You never know who's going to make it in this industry. I mean, there's people in there that, complimentary, I would have never dreamed would have made it, because things have changed over the years. Like, you think like Kevin Owens, a guy like Kevin Owens, if he were in the indies, he wouldn't have gotten signed. But then, things have evolved in the sense of, we're not hiring people based off of this, that, or the other. We're hiring people based on drive, charisma, passion, athleticism, all these other factors, not just the one factor. So you genuinely, like, in the independent wrestling scene, you have a variety of people that could do really, really well in this business. So props to you for seeing the bigger picture on that. And because you're giving us a chance to work first on PR, like first, like just talking in general, but also you're giving us a chance to just tell our stories. And thank you for the opportunity to do so. Like on behalf of all the independent wrestlers in this area, Jared, like really thank you so much for this. This is so cool.
I love doing this. I love talking to people about wrestling. It's funny because actually whenever, my wife, as you know, makes a lot of stuff for Diamond State Wrestling. She does some of the merch and things like that. So I've had to drop things off at Xander's house, and she will actually send my son with me now to be a timekeeper, because if not, then I'll stay there for hours and we'll just talk about wrestling. So, so my son, he'll send me a text and he'll be like, your time is up, bro, or something like that. Cause she's like, okay, he only has this much time and he has to be back home. So I love talking wrestling. I could talk about it all day. And so this side of it, it's a treat for me to be able to do this.
Oh man. Well, I mean, the thing about wrestlers is that we are all yappers certified. Like you get us talking about it, we won't shut up. So it's really smart that your wife's got a timekeeper handy. Yeah. Like that's good. And I think I'm gonna take notes for that on myself for the future. Because I will just yap about this endlessly. So that's pretty smart.
Well, I know being backstage at some of the Diamond State shows, just sitting around and talking with everyone. I mean, watching the matches are amazing. I love seeing the wrestling shows, but it's a whole different thing whenever you're backstage and you get to talk with everybody, and so it feels like a family almost when you're back there, because you're all sharing stories. And sometimes it's not even anything to do with wrestling. One of my first stories, and I've said this on here before, was talking to Angel and talking to Jace Osei in the back, and we were talking about Disney movies, and then Xander walked up and he's like, oh yeah, well, and we all started talking about these Disney movies back there. I was like, this is such a surreal moment that I'm standing here talking with actual wrestlers, but we're talking about Disney.
Yeah, because to hear me out, we're people.
Oh yeah.
Or anything else. And so absolutely, like I think that, and like Alexander has always been really good about bringing in good people in the locker room. Right. So like I can attest to that too. Like, I'll come back from a match after announcing and I'll sit in Gorilla and they're over there talking about like, so do we want to do like Waffle House or IHOP after? And I'm like, you guys just threw each other around for 20 minutes. You're covered in sweat. And how can you be thinking about food right now? I'd be thinking about like water and sitting and resting. I'm like, and so no, like Alexander's like inherently really good about bringing in solid, good, wholesome people in that locker room. Right. I've never had a bad experience at all. And same thing with Eric and Eli. They're really good about bringing in really healthy talent. Like just in general, like the Northwest Arkansas wrestling scene is changing for the better. And we're cultivating a really positive experience across all boards. So I'm just happy to be a part of it in any capacity I can. And I'm really glad you've also had some really positive experiences too. That's really enlightening to hear. I'm glad.
Yeah. I haven't been to a Mutiny show yet, but I am going to make it a point to be able to go to one here soon. But I've heard so many good things about it as well. I see all the stuff online that they're posting and all the different people that they're going to be bringing in too. And I'm very excited. Like you said, the wrestling scene in Northwest Arkansas is changing for the better. And I'm very excited to see where all of this goes.
Oh, me too. Are we going to see you this Saturday at the Freak Show Festival, October 19th?
I actually have another event. It's not an event. We're going to a wedding that day. So
how dare people love each other. God,
I know, right? Well, I do get to see a wrestler there though. So because he's DJing the wedding. So
oh, sick. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, whenever the time comes for my debut, it would be pretty cool if you were there, because that's happening sooner than you think.
I was going to ask you that, when will we see an in-ring debut? So you're saying that it will be soon.
I'm saying it will be sooner than you think. So I'm, tying up some loose ends and putting the final pieces of the puzzle together, Jared. And the in-ring debut of Anna Ray is very imminent at this point. So
Oh, I'm
Just keep
excited
your
to
eyes
see that.
peeled. Yeah, just keep your eyes peeled on Mutiny Wrestling Federation. That's where I will be debuting.
Okay.
And so just keep your eyes peeled. You just never know when the time will come.
Awesome. Awesome. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you about here, um, when I first met you, you were doing the ring announcing at Diamond State Wrestling, and I know that you were training there as well. How was it getting in front of the microphone? What were the nerves like whenever you did that? Are you one of those people that have no problem standing in front of a crowd and talking, or was it something you had to build up to?
It was a little bit of both. Alexander gave me a little bit of a heads up. He was basically like, hey, show's in a few weeks and I need a ring announcer last minute. Are you available to do it? I was like, I guess I'm doing this, because I was also kind of told in wrestling, when you're this green and you're this new, you don't pass up on an opportunity. And even though ring announcing was not on my radar at the time, I was like, you know what? This will give me an opportunity to start being in front of an audience, performing in front of a live crowd.
Yeah.
And maybe just like figuring out how to work the crowd, seeing what falls versus what doesn't and all that. So I was like, okay, heck yeah, bald man, I'll do it. And so, and then, it's like I start, as a ring announcer, you don't really need to have much of a character, but
Right.
I knew I was going to start wrestling at some point. So I was like, okay, well, let me start a foundation here. Let me start going to the drawing board and figuring out what I want my name to be, what I want maybe my signature color to be, what do I come out to? And then I just picked what felt right in the moment, and my music hit, and honestly, that entire show was a blur. I don't recall a lot of it, but I will say, like, the more reps I got, the more comfortable I became.
Yeah.
Something that has really helped me, and if there are any, I don't know, aspiring performers who do listen to this podcast, whether you're in wrestling, acting, singing, theater, I highly recommend attending karaoke nights wherever is local to you.
Okay.
We used to do Boston Mountain Brewing. I think they did recently close, but Flashbacks Pizza over in Rogers is doing karaoke pretty frequently.
Oh, cool.
Park House over in Siloam does karaoke. I recently just did that this weekend. And I've noticed that anytime I do karaoke, it's no different than ring announcing or cutting a promo or doing anything like that. You're working the crowd. And if you take full advantage of the opportunity, you can kind of see what your demographic is. Like, oh, okay, this crowd likes country music. This crowd likes rock music. Okay, what do I have in my arsenal that I can maybe not sing well, but at least I can perform?
Yeah.
And that's kind of my gimmick here is that, my biggest downfall in life is loving music so much that I can't do crap with it. I played flute in high school. I did the Razorback band for a little bit, but when it comes to these vocal cords, it is trash. It's bad. And so, but hey, I get up there and we just vibing. And then, I'll hang out with the crowd and kind of see what it is. And I'm like, this actually is translating to my ring announcing.
Yeah.
And so the more I did those karaoke nights, the better I, got at just getting in front of the crowd. And that's what helped translate to becoming a manager eventually, is like actually working with the crowd on a more intimate level, as opposed to just being in the ring and getting those superstars to come through the curtain.
Right.
So yeah, I would say it's a little bit of both. It was definitely nerve-wracking, but over time, I definitely became really comfortable with it. It's kind of like a sink or swim kind of thing, and I chose to swim the best I could. So
your first night, the first night that you did that, was that the first show at the Diamond Dome?
Oh, yes.
It was. Okay, I thought so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were running out of the Imperial Event Center anytime before that, I do believe.
Right.
Yeah, that was the first show in the Diamond Dome.
Okay, so I actually was at that one, and I thought you were a pro.
Oh, wow! Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just a girl. Thank you.
So you did bring up something that I know, because we're friends. We've became friends over Facebook and all that stuff. I know that you were in band. I'm a band person myself too. You said you played flute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I played French horn. in high school.
That checks out. That checks out.
Does it? Okay.
Well, you know how there's like a stereotype behind each instrument, right?
Okay.
You know how like the trumpet players are usually the more egotistical ones.
Uh-huh.
And the trombone players are usually the more arrogant ones.
All right.
The percussion players are usually the more, don't talk to me unless you're like, you know, giving me something. Then yeah. The clarinet players are a little socially awkward, but I think they mean well.
Right.
Saxophone players are the woodwind version of the trumpet players.
Yeah.
Because they usually get a lot of the melodic lines.
Mm-hmm.
The flute players, we're just here for a good time. We're pretty clueless, most of it. You can't even hear us. And then the French horn players, they are self-aware. Like they know they're not the trumpets, but they know the trumpets would not sound great without their harmony.
Correct.
So yeah. I think, does that cover a lot? I skipped baritone, but that's because baritone's very skippable. And oh, tuba. Yeah, tuba is, they just know that they have nothing but whole notes and fermatas. So like they know that their job is literally to play a few notes to carry the entire song. So they're just like, they're usually kind of respectfully in a concert band setting, the more lazy ones, just because they're all like, I can move this finger and hold it for 16 counts, move the next finger, and then I'm done with the song. But in marching band, the tuba, like the sousaphones, oh yeah, those are tough guys. You know, those are heavy. So yeah. So anyway, those are all the stereotypes that I can think.
I've heard some of them before, but I haven't heard all of them explained like that before. My son plays the tuba, so you know that's
I'm sorry.
But he's very excited about playing sousaphone when it gets to marching band. So his mom tried to get him into all different kinds of sports and everything. And it just wasn't taking for him, but he has been doing really well when it comes to band and art and things like that. So he definitely takes after dad.
That's amazing. How old is your son again?
He will be 13 in December.
Oh, all the fun ages.
Yes.
Okay. That sousaphone will cause some back pain. Make sure he's taking good care of himself.
All
Very
right.
serious on that. Like I always know, like our sousaphone players, they were just like, man, I got to start working back, or like these traps or something. Like they were hurting.
Yeah.
Because they would have to wear that thing for a whole marching band practice. And
oh yeah.
I mean, I graduated from Alma High School, so that's like it's a pretty competitive high school in the sense of fine arts.
Okay.
You know, their band program definitely does go all out, and they do a lot of training over the summer, and they really do. They test your grit whenever it comes to that. And, you know, band kids get a lot of flack because people just think like, they're just nerdy kids. They're just, you know, not good enough to do sports. But like what, you know, there's a stigma behind band kids, but it takes a lot to be able to play music, keep breathing, march from point A to point B, wherever that may be, at a certain speed, slow or fast, while also keeping your composure. And it's just, that takes a lot of grit itself. So props to your son. Like, I hope he sticks with it, especially if he loves it. That's what matters the most. Right. So that's amazing. I'll retract my tuba comment. Maybe he's not lazy, but my gosh, do they have like the most mundane, tedious part of any song? I just feel for them. That's all.
Hey, it's okay. He's an almost 13-year-old boy. Of course he's lazy.
Valid.
So yeah, it's okay. Yeah. And then my daughter took the other side. She has a beautiful voice and she can sing. And so she's in select choir. So I stay busy altering between going to band concerts and going to choir concerts all the time now.
So you're the fine art dad. I got you.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Does your daughter give vocal lessons? Because I may or may not be interested.
She doesn't at this right now. So I'll let her know that there's somebody interested if she wants to jump into that.
Deal.
Hey everybody, I've got a really cool event to tell you guys about, and that's the Tulsa Comic Book Swap Halloween. And it's happening on October 27th at the Glenpool Conference Center in Glenpool, Oklahoma, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., and you do not want to miss it. They've got an incredible lineup of guests, including Justin Nimmo from Power Rangers, Paul E. Niemeyer, the original artist behind Mortal Kombat, Dr. Hassan Rashid from Marvel Studios' Black Panther, Tammy Aaron, who played Pippi Longstocking, and James Hostler, creator of the Bobcat comic book. But that's not all. You'll find everything from comic books, anime, toys, video games, pop culture items, VHS tapes, records, vintage clothing, and art. It's all indoors with free, easy parking. Also, Tulsa Rolling Video Games will be there, offering free play on PS5, Xbox, Switch, and much more. Plus, there'll be food trucks, giveaways, a cosplay contest with prizes and trophies, panels, workshops, and even indie short film showcase screenings. And for all of you Star Wars fans out there, the 501st Garrison Legion and Sisterhood of the Traveling Bantha podcast will be there too. This event is growing bigger every year, driven by the amazing father-daughter team behind it. And you've got to be there to be a part of it. The admission is only $5, and kids 12 and under, they get in free. So make sure to mark your calendars for October 27th at the Glenpool Conference Center in Glenpool, Oklahoma. And you can follow them on Instagram at Tulsa Comic Book Swap or Nicholas Gulcher Comics for updates. For more info, check out their website as well, tulsacomicbookswap.square.site. So when it comes to outside of wrestling, what do you like to do? Do you have any hobbies?
Oh man. So I've got this cat and she's pretty cool.
Yeah.
She just kind of like showed up on my patio one day.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, you're like this beautiful, fluffy cat. Like there's no way you're stray. Like you belong to somebody, and I'm not about to steal somebody's cat. So I posted on my neighborhood forums like, hey, this beautiful calico just showed up. Like, is this the cat distribution system at work, or am I about to like steal someone's cat? Like, what's going on? And nobody claimed ownership. A couple of people were like, hey, the cat picked you. And I'm like, oh, wow. All right. The wand chooses the wizard here. So I guess I'm going to keep this cat. And so I was like, okay, let's go through names here. And so I was thinking like, all right, music, let's do music. Pat Benatar, couldn't get a reaction. Stevie Nicks, couldn't get a reaction. Joan Jett, could not get a reaction. But Tom Petty, she reacted to Tom Petty. So I've got this cat named Tom Petty. And I would say she prohibits me from having any hobbies outside of work and wrestling because I really enjoy my time with her.
Yeah.
And if I were to do anything out of this house, she would be mad at me for days. She's already disappointed anytime I'm gone for wrestling or anything like that. So I really do. I'm a homebody. I really do enjoy my time at home. Yeah. But, you know, whenever I'm not doing wrestling related stuff or if I'm not doing anything for work, I've just been trying to find like local coffee shops and just kind of hang out there, and definitely just trying to meet new people. And of course, like I said, I enjoy karaoke nights, and that's where I do a lot of my networking as Anna Ray. And, you know, I'm doing just a lot with them, trying to build up Northwest Arkansas, honestly. So I hate to say that that is a hobby of mine, but like I want to make wrestling in Arkansas a big thing again. And that's my main goal. And I think we can segue into an evening with the Hardys here if you'd like, because that's my goal at work in its finest at the moment. so I'm sure you have questions on that. So go ahead.
I do. So, you know, that's a pretty big thing to come onto your plate, you know, with, like you said, you've only been in this since 2022. That says a lot about, you know, your ability to market yourself and your ability to do what you do so well. So who brought this to you and how did that happen? Kind of tell me the story behind that.
Okay. Well, I don't want to start a podcast wars here, but are you familiar with the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy podcast?
I am, yes.
Okay. So I am good buddies with John Alba. He is the host of that podcast. I am also a member of his Wrestling According to Alba Patreon.
Okay.
So in the Discord, I noticed that, you know, Matt and Jeff were going to be coming to Little Rock. And I was like, oh, sick. They're doing this like evening with the Hardys. I might get to see John. It'll be great. Yeah. Love that guy. 10 out of 10. And, you know, John's like, oh, I can't make it, but we're trying to have you host instead. And I'm like,
Oh,
okay. He's like, yeah, Matt asked for you to do it, but like we have to like make some arrangements. So just like it's not official yet. And I knew this information for about a week and I was stirring. I was panicking. I was like, oh my gosh, I
yeah.
have no idea what to do with this information. I may or may not be hosting an evening with the Hardys. That's insane. And so I tune in because part of Wrestling According to Alba's Patreon is that every week you can tune in live to the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy taping and just, you tune in through YouTube and you can type in the comments and be interactive with it. And John will be sure to call on you. And, John knew I was on there and that's where I got the news that I was going to be hosting Matt and Jeff and I had no idea. So they went ahead and published it on the podcast and then got the text from John and, we just started brainstorming and making it happen from there. And then sure enough, got to hang out with Matt and Jeff that entire weekend. And that was insane. The inner child in me is still screaming from Matt. Like that was an incredible opportunity. And, we drew pretty good numbers for that evening. And honestly, like my main goal from that, I wanted to network for that so hard because having figures like Matt and Jeff Hardy come to Arkansas, I mean, you're from here, Jared, that's a big deal.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Seeing where Matt and Jeff are at in their careers right now. So they're both currently signed to TNA. They're having a beautiful run. They're having an incredible time. They'll tell you that on the record and off it. And I wouldn't be surprised if, there is a return to WWE at some point in the future for both of them because of that partnership with TNA right now.
Right.
And the bigger picture I see with them coming to Arkansas and doing that event is them seeing that there is a demographic in Arkansas for pro wrestling.
Yes.
And, I don't know if John and Matt are going to be dropping that episode we did. I think it's in the plans at some point. But in that episode, Matt did disclose that he would like to bring TNA to Little Rock.
That would be cool.
That is, and that was my goal with all of this was to show Matt and Jeff like, hey guys, wrestling is still here. It's still live. It's still hot. Yeah. Bring it on. Like we will pack out anywhere you guys go. Yeah. Like we've got enhancement talent in everybody's back pocket right now, hungry and ready to go.
Yeah.
Like, and I was trying to I didn't really have to try to get Matt to see the bigger picture. He saw it with the nonstop signing he was doing at that convention and also getting standing room only at the evening with the Hardy Boyz at the Rev Room. So he saw that there was a demographic there. He saw the bigger picture, and that's good news for Arkansas all around. So getting the Hardy Boyz nod of approval, like, yeah, we want to come back here. We want to run a show here. That's pretty big. And so that was my goal. And that's going to be my goal right now is, yes, of course, I'm going to have my in-ring debut. I'm going to do some Anna Ray stuff, but I want to do something for this community. Yeah. Like I want to give back the love that I've received from wrestling so far, and I want to share it with others. And that's my goal, is just to make wrestling family friendly, to make it big, to make it exciting and enthralling. And that's the goal, is just to create this community that can take people away from the things that are not great in their life and give them a little bit of a live escape from it. And I think Granny Hulkster, which I'm sure you know her, is a prime example of that.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know that Granny Hulkster's had a pretty rough year.
Yep.
And I think she would on the record tell you that wrestling has kept her afloat. Right. And, seeing how loyal she is to all of the independent pro wrestlers in this area, and how much she just loves wrestling. She gets it. She understands the bigger picture, and being able to put on a show for her, and whether she's booing the heel like she does so well or cheering me on that she does so well, she's my number one hype girl.
Yeah.
I can just make her feel good and give her a little bit of an escape for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that is the feeling I want to chase. It's bigger than any feeling like getting signed to a company, in my opinion. Like I want to do that for people, as opposed to be in this industry selfishly, because it is a selfish industry, because it has to be.
Right.
But I want to make it a little selfless if I can.
Yeah.
So that is what that evening with the Hardy Boyz kind of led up to be. Was I want to give back. I'm going to take this opportunity by the horns. I'm going to do my best at it. And I'm going to show Matt and Jeff that we can do this. And I think we got the mission accomplished. So we'll see what happens from here on out. But I was just so thankful for that opportunity. That was just one of those, well, I guess this is happening.
Yeah.
And it turned into that. And so I'm just really hopeful that Arkansas reaps that benefit. I just am so thankful for that opportunity. I'm very thankful for John Alba. So anybody who does listen to this, Wrestling According to Alba, sign up for his Patreon. It may do something for you in the future. So I will shamelessly plug him always for that. So
that's awesome. So you brought somebody up there that I actually wanted to tell you a story about, and that's Granny Hulkster. And I had seen her all over the place because she goes to WFC shows. You know, she's at the Diamond shows. She's at pretty much anything that's within maybe a few hours. She goes to those wrestling shows, you know. Oh, and the first Diamond State show that I went to was the last one that they did at the Imperial Center that they have there. And I actually kind of geeked out a little bit when I saw her for the first time. I was like, oh my God, that's Granny Hulkster, you know? So she was so sweet when I walked up to her and started talking to her, you know, because I mean, she was kind of aware of my podcast and everything because I'd had quite a few different wrestlers on there, and I you know, you can see who's liking your stuff and all that. And so whenever I saw her, it was a really cool moment. I was like, that's Granny Hulkster, you know?
Yeah. Oh man, that girl's a trip. I mean, she's definitely a local celebrity just within our vicinity. So I absolutely, when I first met her, I wasn't super aware of the independent wrestling scene just yet. Cause like I said, like I met Trish and Lita, and then my knowledge of the indie scene came about. And so my first ever show was Down South Championship Wrestling, I believe. They ran a show out of Mulberry. Yeah. My first match that I ever watched live was Pineapple Jack versus Razor Ray, I believe. Okay. And I thought that was amazing. I was like, wow, these are real people. They are doing exactly what I'm about to go sign up to do, because that's why I went to that show. Because Alexander was like, hey, meet me at this show. We can talk a little bit more about what we'll be doing at Diamond State. And if you have any questions, like me and some of the wrestlers will be there to answer them. And I'm like, sweet, this will be my first show ever. And that's where I saw Granny Hulkster. And I was like, that girl, she gets it. She understands what this business is supposed to be. She understands the fans' role in this, and she helps lead the crowd with what, you know, the idea of the wrestlers, what they're doing versus what they're not doing and all that. So she's an integral part of any show. I absolutely adore her so much. So.
Oh yeah. So my first show that I went to, I think I was a little spoiled because the main event match was Luke Langley versus Duke Cornell. And
oh, no way.
That was the very first live event I had ever went to for wrestling. And I was like, man, this is better than television, you know? And I actually told Luke that night. And I was like, man, this is so good. And he ended up being my first wrestler on the podcast.
Oh man, Luke is a fantastic worker. When you think of like just all around good pro wrestler in the indie scene, Luke Langley's got to be somebody that comes into your top 5. He's all around just very good, genuine guy, but definitely a really good pro wrestler. So yeah, that's a very spoiled main event that you did.
It is.
Agree.
You know, and I had some good ones too, because I got to see Justin Lee wrestle in that show, and I've had him on here, I think 4 times now. He's been on the show.
Oh, nice.
So, you know, so I mean, there was a lot of really good wrestlers there. I mean, Jason Jones was wrestling in that show. Tim Rockwell was wrestling at that show. You know, there was a lot of really good talent that I got to see. So I think I was spoiled seeing that very first show. But all the shows that I've been to since have been amazing as well. And that's the thing when it comes to indie wrestling. You know, people kind of, the one thing that I've heard in this area is there's been shows that weren't so good in the past that kind of ruined this area for a lot of people. But I feel that the talent that we have in the Northwest Arkansas area has improved so much and is so good that it's giving it like a resurgence in this area to where we can have good wrestling happen here again.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I don't know what the wake up call was, but I do believe it did start with Diamond State, just bringing in a lot of really good, talented people, but at a variety. So you would see some, high flyers, you would see some brawlers, you would see some technicians. And so, I mean, there's just a lot of really good things happening in the wrestling scene. And I'm optimistic that it'll just continue to grow, and people will travel to Northwest Arkansas to come and see whatever wrestling show, whatever company is going to put on. Just because if we can attract the right kind of talent and take care of that talent, then that's what matters. And so that's the plan for sure, I think, within a lot of these companies. I think that's the end goal, is we just want people to understand there's a lot of value and a lot of high quality product within the independent wrestling scene in Northwest Arkansas.
Yeah. One thing that I've heard mentioned multiple times, and I love this, and I hope that everybody feels this way too: leave it better than you found it. And that's the thing that I notice with a lot of the people that I interact with when it comes to independent wrestling, is they want to leave it better than the way they found it. And I think that the more people that have that mentality, the better off wrestling is going to be.
Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful mentality, and I retweet, echo whatever the kids are saying, that statement. I think that is absolutely true. Just keep on growing, never stop getting better. Like if someone says they're the best at something, you say that you're better. And you just keep on going, and then there's no limit. Like the sky is the limit, essentially. So that's a good mentality, Jared.
So do you prefer being heel or face? Because I know you've been doing some heel work when it comes to being a manager and things like that. So which do you prefer?
Oh man, so I love being a face for the kids. Because there's this kid that comes to a lot of the Diamond State shows. His name is Jacob. He's adorable. He's your pal Terry. It's his son. And I think if I were to be a heel in front of that kid, it would break his heart. It would ruin his perception of just women in general. It would be, formative to his brain. And so I feel like right now I love working face. But I think the thing that does come naturally to me is working heel. Because anytime I've done a show with Angel, the last show I did with Angel, Jared, so the finish of the match, it was a triple threat match for the AWA Pro Heavyweight Championship.
Okay.
So Brimstone, Chris Pabst, and Angel Camacho going at it. They get Chris out of the ring, so it's just Brimstone and Angel. And Brimstone's got this thing where he only can win a match if he uses his title belt to knock out his opponent. So I noticed that my boy Angel, he was stunned on the ropes and he was having problems getting up. And I'm like, oh no, I got to go check on him. I'm his manager. So I slide into the ring and I go check on Angel, the Puerto Rican juggernaut. Like, he's 450 pounds. Like, there's no way he's knocked down. And so I'm checking on him, and all of a sudden it's lights out for me. They tell me what happened was, whenever I was checking on Angel, I turned around and I got knocked out with the belt from Brimstone. He knocked me out. And I was like, oh, that happened. Okay. So, apparently the crowd cheered very loudly for that. They did not like me so much. They enjoyed seeing me just laid out like that. So the good news is that Angel won, and he is the AWA heavyweight champion over in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. So the crowd really does not like me when I go down there, and that is the goal. And I think, a lot of that, I channel a lot of that suppression from, like, we all have it, childhood trauma. We all got bullied at some point, or maybe our dad was a little too mean to us, or whatever. We suppress all of that. And then whenever you're a heel, you get to just let it out. You get to take those emotions, and you finally have a placeholder for them. They don't live in your heart and your brain anymore. You can just project them, because Jared, I'm going to put you on the spot here. What is one of the best qualities in a heel? just whatever you think. There's no right or wrong answer to this. It's subjective. What do you think makes a good heel? What quality would they possess?
They have to be a good talker, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so that is something that is actually within my moniker. I'm the outspoken.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, I I had a few nicknames.
Okay.
Mouth was one of them because I was a mouthy kid. If I was upset, everybody in the room knew I was upset.
Yeah.
And then my favorite one it was like a backhanded compliment. It was like, "Oh, Annie, you're just so outspoken. Like, it's okay, darling." And then when I looked at that as an adult, I'm like, that's kind of rude, actually. That's like a Southern woman telling you, "Oh, bless your heart," whenever they. And so I was like, you know what? Hear me out.
Yeah.
I think that's my moniker, is the outspoken. And so I would agree. I would also say that another really good quality within a heel is overcompensation.
Yeah.
So like, what is she compensating for? Like, why is she dressed like that? Why is she talking to the crowd that way? Like, was her father mean to her? Like, did she have a rough childhood? Is that what we're seeing? Like, what is she compensating for? And so you think of like a lot of the best heels in our industry, like I would argue like guys like Randy Orton and The Rock and Triple H. What were they compensating for? And so that is a characteristic that I unfortunately will tell you comes natural to me. And so I can lean into that. And so I think I have no issues being a heel. I have a harder time doing face-like promos. Like that's something I have been practicing, and you think that would come a little easier to me just with doing a lot of the announcing that I've done. But when it comes to being a wrestler doing face promos, it's like it's got heel undertones to it. So I'm trying to have it come across more genuine, like almost borderlining like the hugger version of Bailey, essentially. So but that's where the overcompensation ironically comes in. It's like, that's what I'm overcompensating for. So naturally I'm a heel, Jared, but I really do enjoy being a face because seeing the kids just get so into the show and seeing them, meeting some of these little girls that come up to me, like they have like these fishnet arm sleeves on and I'm like, oh, that's kind of my brand. That's kind of cool. I dig it. And they're like, we want to be a ring announcer when we grow up. I'm like, oh, are you sure? And so like, I mean, no, like it's just really cool just because like, looking through the lens of like just a normal member of society, I was that little girl growing up. Like I wanted to be just like Stone Cold Steve Austin. I wanted to be just like Lita, Randy Orton, Edge, all these people. Like I wanted to be them. And so seeing that I can maybe carry that impact onto this next generation, I would love to lean into that as much as I can. So that I would say, and I could have just answered this shortly, huh?
No, you're good.
But yeah, I guess I would prefer being a face, but naturally I am a heel. So,
and it's the way that you portray it and everything. Whenever I first saw your first video of whenever you were coming out with Angel, I was like, okay. Because at first I've always known you as just being this nice person in the ring and stuff. And then I see you and I was like, okay, she's got the attitude that can go with it. This is going to be good. She's got something here. So I'm really enjoying seeing what you're doing when it comes to the managing side, as well as doing the ring announcing stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love it. It's just giving me a lot of practice for whenever the time does come soon to debut as a wrestler, because then it's just helping me with that range on how to work the crowd whenever I am a heel versus how to work it when you're a face, and tell all those little stories within the match through your moveset and through your facials and everything like that. So I'm very honored that Angel took that chance on me earlier this year to have him start like being managed. And, I think we create a lot of fun together. We create a lot of magic, but I just really, I nod him for, seeing the bigger picture as well here, in the sense of like giving a green gal like me a chance to just go out there and perform and practice this. So I can be prepared for when the time comes to start wrestling.
So did he just come to you and be like, hey, I've got this idea? Or how did that actually happen? Oh, okay.
vice versa. So I got the idea because I was like, I'm really liking the ring announcing thing, but I want to do something a little bit more. And I was watching some old like Stacy Keibler and Test matches, like
Okay.
seeing their dynamic from back in the day. Like
Yeah.
I was like, like there's not a lot of valets in wrestling.
Right.
And Angel's like, Anna, you annihilate me every time you're around me. You're not a valet. You're a manager. You can talk. And
Right.
I was like, oh, okay, I guess I can. Because the idea was like, I was pitching to him. I was like, hey, can I just come and valet for you, like, and network at these other promotions and just kind of start getting my name out? Like, is that okay? I'll travel. I don't have a booking fee. Just like, I just want to be a part of things. I would love to valet for you. He was all like, nah, you can talk. You can manage. I'm like, okay, deal. I guess that's what I'm doing. And so, he helped me a little bit just like with cadencing on my promos and, the best way to, like if he feeds an opponent to the ropes, he'll be the one distracting the ref and I'll start gouging their eyes out or put them in a chokehold or something like that, start doing some heel stuff to help get them over and, start working the crowd in different ways and not ignoring the crowd. Apparently a lot of people tend to do that. So, these are things that he has taught me along the way and that I plan to translate into wrestling. So that's pretty much how that conversation went, is like, I hit him up, asked him to valet, and he was like, nah, you're going to manage instead. And that's pretty much how that worked. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
And like you said, I'm sure it's a lot of fun working with him. I've had him on the show here, and he's a ton of fun to talk to. And he's such a nice guy,
Oh, yeah.
He comes across, because of his character and everything, as, he's just this scary dude. And then I told my kids after I had him on the show, I was like, he's not as scary as you think he is. They're like, what? No, because, they've only seen him from the show side of everything. So I imagine that's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, he's a gentle giant for sure. Like he's a very, very thoughtful friend of mine. And like his persona is intimidating. I mean, he is the Puerto Rican juggernaut.
Exactly.
So like, of course he has this presence, this aura.
Yep.
But just after you spend like 18 hours in a car with Angel Camacho, like that dude will sing Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield at the top of his lungs. He loves everything about Lilo and Stitch, and I'm throwing him under the bus right now. Like, this man is just a softie. He's a gentle giant. Don't let him fool you. But yeah, so good dude all around. Very good dude.
Oh yeah. So I've just got a few more questions for you before I get you off of here and everything. And once again, I'm really enjoying having this conversation with you. What is some of your favorite? Do you have a favorite match? Like from all of your watching wrestling, what is one match that has stuck out over the years to you?
Ooh, oh my gosh, I have so many answers to this. Well, first, Halloween Havoc 1997, Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero. I love everything about that match. If someone were to ask me which match I would show somebody who doesn't know anything about wrestling, I would show them that one. Because those are just two incredible performers just doing the most. And I love everything about that match. But honestly, like, the magic created between Bayley and Sasha Banks at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn was that really repaved history for women's wrestling. So I've tape studied that match into oblivion, and it really did do something to the hemisphere of women's wrestling. So I would credit that one for sure, Jared.
Man, that's a good one. I enjoy that one. The Brooklyn TakeOver one that they did was amazing. And another one that always comes to mind for me is the Fatal 4-Way match where it was Charlotte, Becky, Bayley, and Sasha all for the NXT Women's Championship. I think that was maybe the TakeOver right before that, but that's the one that got me like, oh, hey, NXT's got something going on here.
Oh yeah, and usually fatal 4-ways and triple threats can be kind of clunky sometimes.
Yeah,
but they had a good rhythm, and throughout that match, like there was just really good cadencing, sequencing happening, and I mean, all four of those women have insane chemistry with each other individually.
They do.
Like it's an excellent choice on that one too, for sure.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite feud?
Oh man. Yes. Of course I do. I would say for women, I loved the Mickey James and Trish Stratus storyline growing up so
Yeah.
much. Because, oh man, I don't think Mickey James gets enough credit just for
Right.
being an all-around amazing pro wrestler for women.
Yeah.
I just remember that being like one of the first storylines I genuinely paid attention to as a kid.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was absolute insanity. And
Yeah.
that's because it is.
Yeah.
And so another one is, oh man, I have so many, but Randy Orton and Christian.
Okay.
I loved those two together.
Okay.
Like their chemistry was untouchable. I thought they had some really good matches together.
Yeah.
So I would say that probably my favorite feud so far in pro wrestling for sure.
Okay. And I love how it switched from him being, the baby face to the heel so quickly,
Oh,
because
for sure.
Christian is such a great heel.
Oh, isn't he?
I mean, right now, I think he's hitting his stride in AEW when it comes to, just letting him go on the mic and everything. But I've always preferred Christian as a heel.
Absolutely. He does it so dang well. And especially currently,
Yeah.
I think it's just that crop top turtleneck long gimmick that he's doing that's just really giving off terrible person vibes.
Yeah.
That I love it so much. He's doing so good.
He is. So do you have anything coming up that maybe you want to talk about before I get you off of here?
Oh, yeah. So, like I mentioned earlier, Mutiny Wrestling Federation, we are doing our second show of the year over at the Freak Show Festival. I'm not sure when this is airing, Jared, but either way, do stay tuned. Mutiny is planning on doing quite a few more shows, definitely within the next calendar year. And they're just looking to grow and help expand that pro wrestling scene within Northwest Arkansas. Diamond State Wrestling is doing an event in Clarksville, Arkansas on November 2nd. So I'll be announcing that one. And then, just kind of stay tuned for those two promotions. I think they're honestly two of the better ones to work out of within Arkansas. So there's also Lit Wrestling over around, it's in the Little Rock area. It's like the OIWA. Really, really good talent comes in there as well. So like pro wrestling is just becoming really big in Arkansas. So if you are a listener to this, follow your local pro wrestlers, follow any of those companies that I mentioned, Diamond State Wrestling, Lit Wrestling, and Mutiny Wrestling Federation. Like they're just inherently good for bringing in good, talented people. They will absolutely sports entertain you into oblivion. So I think it'll be a good time. And then as far as me personally, I can be found on socials. I think all of them, honestly. I mostly use Instagram at its.annaray. I do have a TikTok that I inconsistently post on that I do admittedly need to be better about utilizing. That one's also under It's Anna Ray. Pretty much all of my socials are under It's Anna Ray. So stay tuned because I will be, like I mentioned, I'm putting the pieces together on the puzzle of my debut. So that will be coming soon. I can't say anything else, but just keep your eyes peeled. It's finally happening.
Awesome. Well, Anna, it has been wonderful talking to you tonight. I have really enjoyed this. I'm going to talk to you for a few more minutes after we end this recording, but we're going to say bye here for now. And once again, thank you so much for being on here.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Jared. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Clay Readymade here with Diamond State Wrestling, Northwest Arkansas's premier wrestling promotion. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, as well as subscribing to our YouTube channel, where you can find all the action-packed action that only Diamond State Wrestling can provide.
Hello there. While I have your attention, let me introduce myself. My name is Colby Cheese. I'm a content creator at TikTok with over 1.6 million followers, husband, comic book collector, and avid wrestling fan. And if you're listening to this, that means you must be a wrestling fan too. We will be discussing all of the wrestling from Monday Night Raw to Friday Night SmackDown, those AEW Wednesdays to those PLEs on the weekends that we have to wake up at 11 a.m. for. And that's only at Wrestling with Colby Cheese.
Hey listener, This is a not paid for product placement for the Zero to Hero podcast.
What do you
if
mean
you
not
definitely
paid?
like what you're listening to now, come on over to the Zero to
am I
Hero
keeping my
podcast.
Lights on. Just
Anywhere you want to be able to find your podcast
the
at,
trash bills
like
due
Apple
next week.
Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts,
How the
and
hell
Google
am I gonna get
Podcasts,
my
which
God
still a little
boys in
weird.
for the next 2 weeks? All
Come
the
on over
pre-orders are
and
starting to
enjoy
fucking
yourself.
drop.
And listen to Billy and myself bicker, argue, and, well,
Speaking of
fight
dog,
about a lot of
no
things,
goddamn
as
dog
we are
food
the
for
bulk
the
and
next
skull
2
of
weeks.
podcasting.
How the hell am I
Good
going
luck
to get
out there,
money
and
for
welcome back to the show.
All right, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed that episode with Anna Ray. She was a lot of fun to have on the show, and I look forward to seeing where her career goes when it comes to professional wrestling, because I think she's going to be able to go a long ways with this. So, yeah, I really appreciate her coming on the show, taking time out of her schedule to come on here and talk to me, and, yeah, it was a really good time. So next week's episode will be a kind of a Halloween episode I am doing with Billy from the Zero to Hero podcast. So tune in next week. Make sure that you come on by and listen to me and him talk goofy about Halloween and maybe some other cool things as well. We're going to have a great time talking. And while you're waiting, make sure that you check out my podcast networks that I'm a part of, the OIW Podcast Network and the Zero to Hero Podcast Network. They both have amazing shows. They have all different kinds of content, so make sure that you go out there and you find another show to listen to while you're waiting on another episode of IYGADAP to drop. Also, make sure that you go out there and you check out my merch site. You can get yourself a t-shirt or a hoodie. I've got some other things that are coming up on there here soon. So yeah, be on the lookout for that and get you some of this merch while we've got it. If you like the way my ending theme song sounds on my podcast, make sure that you go out there and follow the man who created it for me. His name is D-Cure, and he makes amazing content. He makes amazing music, and I am really thankful that he made this song for me. If you like the way it sounds, make sure that you go out there and you follow him as well. So as I told you last week, we don't have any more live events that are coming up as of right now. But as soon as something comes up, I will let you guys know where it is that you can go to see us when it comes to Original Geek or when it comes to If You Give a Dad a podcast. But yeah, as of right now, we don't have any more events for this year. The first one I believe that we have so far scheduled is in February. So I will be talking more about that as it gets closer to that date. I've got some kind of cool ideas that I'm wanting to do when it comes to that first convention that we're going to be at in February. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be some cool stuff coming up. But right now, I don't really have that much to announce when it comes to that in particular. So yeah, like I said, stay tuned. Also, make sure that you follow my brother podcast, If You Give a Dad a YouTube channel, and If You Give a Dad a cosplay. Both of them have amazing content that will help you to get a cosplay or a YouTube channel started. So make sure that you go out there and follow them as well. If you want to follow me on social media, you can find everywhere that I am on social media if you go to my show notes here and hit my link tree at the very bottom. And then once you're in the link tree, it should all the icons should be at the top there. You can also find my email address there as well if you would like to send me an email. Just make sure that you follow me on all those different places. I have some fun stuff that I post on TikTok that sometimes doesn't make it to, say, my Facebook page or things like that. So make sure that you're following me in all the different places. That way you can keep up with everything that is going on with IYGADAP. And like I said, send me an email if you want to have somebody on the show, or if you have a joke that you want to tell me, or if you want to just talk to me for a minute and tell me what's on your mind, or if you want to just tell me that you like my show or you don't, whatever. Send me a line. Let me know what you think. Also, with saying that, make sure that you do me this huge favor. Rate and review this podcast wherever it is that you're listening. Make sure that you give me a review or you rate this show however it works on the platform that you're on. If you're on Spotify, give me a 5-star review. If you're on iTunes, make sure that you do that, and you can leave an actual message there as well. Some of them, they give you a place where you can actually review it. So make sure that you do that. That way, more people are recommended this show. The more people that are recommended this show, the more people that'll listen, and I would love to see this show grow. Also, if this is your first time listening, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. That way you're notified when a new episode drops. Make sure that you share this show with your friends, your family, your enemies, your neighbors, a stranger. whoever that you come across, tell them about this show if you enjoy listening to it. That way, also, we can get more people that listen to the show as well. So, we've come to the end of another episode of If You Give a Data podcast, and it is time for Billy's favorite part of the show, and that is Dad Joke of the Week. I tried to tell a cashier a joke. It didn't seem to register.
Wow.
All right. I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Bye.
I'm in my room rounded, but I got a podcast on. He calls us beautiful people, then tells us who we have on. The best part of my day, though we're blocked out in my pods. Tell my friends all about it so that they follow along. And the host is kinda nerdy, but guess what I am as well. I don't feel so alone, and I began walking out of my shell. Heard a story, I needed connection I haven't felt. I'll be looking for the next one, till then farewell. It's the podcast for me. Have it on, better go see. Listen closely, download and tune in remotely. It's the podcast for me. Have it on, better go see. And listen closely, download and tune in remotely.
This podcast is part of the OIW Podcasting Network.
This has been an Original Geek production.